This video has been annotated for extra information density.
Now that the circle is complete, or at least our understanding of the circle, let's take a look at Force and Destiny, the third of 3 core books or lines within Fantasy Flight Games' Star Wars role-playing game. Like the other core books, Force and Destiny contains everything you need to run a game in the Star Wars universe on a theme. Where Edge of the Empire had a theme of playing smugglers, scum, villainy, outlaws just trying to get by on the edge of the Empire, on the fringe of society, out on the outer rim. And where Age of Rebellion put starfighter pilots, soldiers, spies, and other agents seeking to bring down the Galactic Empire into our hands as characters. Force and Destiny is the game which focuses on the Force and the internal struggle that may lead a Force user or Force sensitive to stumble from the light and fall to darkness. Like the other 2 games, this is a game written from the point of view that characters will see the light as the most desirable side of the Force. That said, it does contain everything you need to know to run Force users from the dark side. The art inside the game continues to impress. This is a glossy, full-color, lavishly illustrated work. If you have the previous core books, you know most of what is inside this book. Again, the only thing that changes from core book to core book is the specific theme. So shifting from the scum and villainy of Edge of the Empire through the rebel alliance of Age of Rebellion, now to Force users. All the careers provided are for Force-using characters, and they should put you in mind of Jedi-style characters that you may have played in earlier video games. The game addresses 2 types of play, really, focusing on one more than the other. The one it focuses on is on characters like Luke, who discover in some way that they have the ability to use the Force. And this is their journey. If a group prefers, there's something called night level play, and what that really is a way to have characters which put you in mind more of the characters seen in the prequels. But this is not the big book of Jedi. The Jedi Order is gone, and this game is ostensibly set in the same era as the other 2, just shortly after the destruction of the first Death Star. The game does mention playing in other eras, and extension rules for that are provided in the small booklet, which comes with the GM screen. This is the GM screen. And you can see it brings forward its, internal metaphor quite clearly. This is the game about what your choices mean in terms of you as a Force user. And this is the game about what are you going to do in a galaxy where the order of Force users has been wiped out and only fragments remain. As I mentioned, the GM screen comes with this small booklet, as do the others. The booklets contain an adventure, and at the back, they contain some extra rules. In Edge of the Empire, those rules were about the care and feeding of your Nemesis-level opponents. In Age of Rebellion, they were the nearly essential squad and squadron rules. In Force and Destiny, these are the lightsaber construction rules, how one actually goes on the quest and how they are constructed, complete with illustration. And again, I might argue that these are essential and maybe better placed in the core book, but that decision is out of our hands and long since made. The other extension rules, and this has 2 sets of additional rules, these are about night level play and playing in other eras, and those are the kind of rules which belong in a supplement like this, in my opinion. Unlike the previous 2 core books, this adventure is not standalone. It flows from the one in the core book. Other than changing color, the inside of the screen is exactly the same as the other 2 screens, which means that as a beginner, you will find this screen to be quite useful for a variable amount of time. And there are things on here, such as the critical injury chart and the vehicle critical hit result chart, which remain useful no matter how you run your game, with or without an upright screen. I use mine mostly as reference in the hands of the players. The silhouette comparison chart, the damage control difficulty chart, these I find remain useful. There are things now, after a year of play, that I wish were on the screen, and for Force and Destiny, that goes double. Whereas in Age of Rebellion, I really missed something being on the screen for space combat. In Force and Destiny, the interactions between morality and conflict, I think, belonged on the screen. But again, what are you going to do? It's still a good screen, great art. It's very, very thick, very heavy. It's the industry standard for game screens. There's always going to be something missing on a screen. So you'll always hear complaints about people when they talk about pre-printed screens. The solution, I suppose, is to simply use the customizable screens I have. But I'm really not a screen user when it comes right down to it. I really just bought it to see if it was different, and of course, to get at the extra rules printed here. So, Force and Destiny. An impressive book, filled with inspiring, evocative information, imagery, and art. It's actually deeper than I expected it to be. If you already own Age of Rebellion and Edge of the Empire, the majority of what's in this book you already have. This is the way that this game runs. You choose the theme that interests you most and go with it. If you then wish to expand into other themes or add the unique items in Age of Rebellion or Force and Destiny or Edge of the Empire to your game, then the choice is yours. So what do you get that's new? Well, quite a lot, really. As we go into the vehicle section, a lot of the air speeders, land speeders, and tracked vehicles are new. Some of them coming from the prequels, maybe more than we've seen before. But there are still, the old tried and true things which you really need to have to run the game. They've walked a nice tightrope between supplying new things for those people who are going to end up buying all the core books, and supplying enough of the basics for people who aren't. So I really have to say I'm impressed with how they approached this model without, compromising your ability to play the game. So we have X-Wings and Y-Wings, we have the TIE Fighter, we have a variety of shuttles. We have more smaller ships than in the other core books, I feel, of the freighter and transport variety, which serves as a nice toolkit. We have ships that we've seen before and ships that we haven't. So, getting into gear, the same thing is true. But here's the Force chapter, and this is, of course, I think what people are most interested in. What Force powers are represented. It's a lot about what the Force is, which is great. than a lot of the standard stuff which we've already had. But here what's new is the balance between the Force and dealing with the morality mechanic, where one will, based on their decisions, experience a fall toward the dark side and the ability to climb back up toward the light. Now, the Force powers represented are Battle Meditation, Bind, Enhance, which we've seen before, Foresee, which we've seen before, Heal Harm, Influence, which we've seen before, Misdirect, Move, which we've seen before, Protect Unleash, Seek, Sense, which we've seen before, and there you go. To go back through the Force abilities, Sense, well, I think that one is obvious. We won't use too much time. Seek is the ability to find what has been lost or find things to which one has ties. And growing in this power is about increasing the range, let's say, of it. But more than that, it also helps you understand the thing that you're trying to find. This is an interesting subtlety. Protect, Unleash. Well, you want your Force lightning and you want your ability to protect against it. Here you go. And this has the built-in struggle. If you choose to use it in a certain way, this will create internal conflict within your character, which must be resolved later on. Unlike previous editions of the Game Master is spared having to be the one to decide if you and your character are moving toward the dark side and ultimately, losing your character. Because this game is about the struggle. So it's your choices, what you decide to actually do and how you decide to do it, that determines if you build up that internal conflict, and then your character has to work through that. And the mechanics of the game, once resolved, determine how you've moved on the scale of morality. This is a 1 to 100 scale. Below 30, and you're leaning in this direction. Above 70, and you're leaning in this direction. Note that I'm personally not siding with Yoda as a paragon of the light. Misdirect is the ability to send people's attention in other areas, to move unseen and things like that. Influence is the classic, these are not the droids you're looking for, and again, how it's applied has direct consequences. Heal Harm, obvious. Foresee. This is a tricky power, and it receives extra information about how to run it, especially when we get into predictions and how mutable or immutable the future might be. Enhance. This is where the high jumps come from and the superior piloting ability or whatever else. The enhanced power allows you to augment your abilities in several different ways. Bind is basically holding people in place, but it's a broader and yet subtler power than that. It's an interesting one, which I used in a game a few months ago, and what a challenge it provided for the characters. Battle Meditation is a way to harmonize a force together. So an interesting mix of powers, nothing that will by itself bring the house down, and everything with its own shades of decision. If I use this, what does it mean? Using the Force in all three games is really quite easy. There's the specific Force die to roll to determine how much, let's say, power you can harness at that particular moment, and it might be none at all. And it always comes with that choice of, do I want to use the energies of the dark side or of the light? Making this a very, very interesting proposition for gameplay. Well, this is going to be the end of this so-called quick review or overview of Force and Destiny. In the future on the channel, we'll be going through an actual review from mechanics to setup to running the game. After a year of play, I guess it's finally time to review the game for real. So, in the future, that is.